Good evening. What a difference a week makes. Following a dramatic win last Saturday in South Carolina and victories in Super Tuesday states, Joe Biden's campaign has new life. He has jumped ahead of Bernie Sanders in the delegate count, and that leaves Democrats with a showdown between Biden and the Vermont senator. Which wing of the Democratic Party will capture the nomination? The consolidating moderates or Sanders and his resolute movement? Joining us tonight are two of the best campaign reporters in the country. Abby Phillip, political correspondent for CNN, and Jonathan Martin, national political correspondent for the New York Times. Jonathan, why has the establishment since South Carolina and Super Tuesday rallied behind Biden? What's going on behind the scenes to prompt all of that activity?
I think a lot of it's organic. They want to beat Trump. And that's been the overriding impulse of the Democratic Party establishment. And to be honest, most Democratic voters, since the beginning of this campaign, you talk to voters like we do, Abby, all the time out there, you hear the same refrain again and again. We just want to beat Trump. My top issue is finding somebody that can beat this guy. We've heard it 1,000 times over the last year and a half, and that, I think, is the animating impulse. And there was great uncertainty in January and most of February about who would emerge as kind of the mainstream Democratic candidate to take on that task. And it wasn't clear for a while because of what happened in the first states. And I think, Bob, what happened is there were a lot of primary voters who just wanted clarity. And they saw Bloomberg take that hit in the debate in Nevada, courtesy of Senator Warren. And they saw Biden then pick up steam in South Carolina and win South Carolina, not by a little, but by almost 30 points. And I think what the size of that margin, and then immediately Klobuchar and Mayor Pete seeing the handwriting on the wall, getting out and endorsing Biden, I think just the cascade of those events is what really sort of pushed voters to get behind Biden on Super Tuesday. There was some behind-the-scenes activity. I spoke with Senator Harry Reid, now retired from Nevada, but still very active in politics. And he actually, said he had made some calls. And so there was some activity, but I think it was mostly an organic thing, Bob.
Yeah, and I think I've always said in this campaign that voters this cycle have been more like pundits than I've ever experienced, where they're looking down the field and trying to see, okay, who's going to be able to get black voters, who's going to be able to get white voters in the Midwest, and is Biden actually strong enough to withstand this primary? And when Biden started to show that kind of strength after South Carolina, it really solidified something that was already kind of there waiting for him. Voters who already kind of believed that he had a lot of the ingredients to be to inevitably be the nominee, and they were looking for a reason to actually cast that vote. And the unprecedented sort of moderate consolidation that we saw with Buttigieg and Klobuchar made a huge, huge difference, because they also want to know whether the eventual nominee will be able to unite the party, will be able to get all the other parts of this party after a very protracted and sometimes tough primary together. So he was able to do that, and I think the Buttigieg campaign in particular led this off. And had he not done that, I'm not sure it would have happened the way that he did. It did. I think that they were concerned that Klobuchar would not get out unless he did. That's why he went first, and he did not want to be blamed for Biden being weakened going into Super Tuesday.
And President Obama, Bob, did have a phone call late Sunday with Mayor Pete after he got out of the race. And my understanding is that the president did not tell Pete, hey, Pete, you should endorse Biden. It'll be good for your career. He was more subtle than that. Yeah. But my understanding is that he said something to the effect of, you've got maximum leverage right now. Be smart about that and use it right now. Spend your capital when it's sort of full in the bank right now. And Pete obviously took that advice the next day.
Yeah. Speaking about President Obama, Senator Sanders, after winning the Nevada caucuses, has tried now, in the wake of all of the Biden victories, to link himself to President Obama in a new ad. Inside the Sanders campaign, in that world on the left of the Democratic Party, are they adjusting to the Biden moment?
Well, they know that they need to do better with black voters in particular. He has actually quite significant strength with Latino voters, which we should not dismiss. But with black voters, it's been a persistent weakness. One of the problems for Sanders was that in South Carolina, they thought that they had a little bit more momentum than they did. But the Clyburn endorsement really cut Sanders' feet right out from under him. And then they realized they had a lot more work to do. In fact, just before the South Carolina primary, Sanders actually debuted a kind of cut-down version of this new Obama ad that featured a clip of him walking on the colonnade at the White House with President Obama and a former Obama voter, a black woman, saying, "I want a candidate who has the same kind of fire as President Obama." Well, that ad did not work in South Carolina. Right. And so there are some questions about whether this new strategy is going to work, but the fact that they're even going there is a reflection that they know they have got to start to do even a little bit better will help them keep up with Biden as we head into states that are in the South, very, very favorable territory for Biden.
Jonathan, you've been killing it on the New York Times beat on Biden. Is he scaling up his campaign? Is he adjusting to his new status as the front runner in this race?
He's building the plane as he takes off, actually. There's like one wing on, and he's sort of putting the other one on. No, look, you have to give credit to Biden and his staff for doing an extraordinary job with not a lot of money. Little organization, in South Carolina, and certainly on Super Tuesday. My goodness, he didn't even visit Minnesota or Massachusetts, and he won both states. Yeah. So I think you have to credit him for that. He is now, though, talking to Jennifer O'Malley Dillon, who was a top Obama aide, to basically come in and help run the campaign. And that is a signal, Bob, that he knows he's got to scale up, and he has to do it soon.
And the other real factor we're looking at the end of this week is Senator Elizabeth Warren, who exited the race, and what her exit says about everything in the party. Here's what she had to say after she left.
If you say, yeah, there was sexism in this race, everyone says, whiner. And if you say, no, there was no sexism, about a bazillion women think, what planet do you live on?
We were never going to elect a black man until we elected a black man, and we're never going to elect a woman until we elect a woman. So we're just going to stay in this.
Abby, a reckoning on gender for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, and I think it's been a long time in coming. We had a similar conversation after Kamala Harris got out of the race about what is the impact of sexism on this race. But with Warren now out, no women in the race, no people of color, no one under the age of 70, a lot of diversity issues. But for women, I think this cycle has been actually a lot more about the hardest problems with gender and politics. For a long time, we focused a lot about how, people critiqued what women wore and how they spoke. And all of those things are important, too. I think what this election has revealed is that there are deeper biases against women that are at play here. Voters who say they don't want to vote for a woman because they don't perceive women to be leaders. They don't perceive them to be, they do perceive them to be shrill. They kind of have a lot of negative connotations associated with women. And it's not just men, it's also women voters as well. So this is the hardest part. And I think that this campaign has revealed, there wasn't a whole lot of talk about what people were wearing this cycle, but the gender bias was still underneath the surface, and I think that's where we are now.